The Super Bowl 28 halftime show in 2004 was designed as a celebration of pop culture scale, spectacle, and legacy, with Janet Jackson positioned at the center of it. She entered the performance with decades of artistic dominance behind her, commanding a global audience estimated at over 140 million viewers. The choreography, staging, and collaborations were meticulously rehearsed, meant to showcase precision and control rather than controversy. But in the final seconds of the performance, a planned costume reveal went wrong. During a choreographed move with Justin Timberlake, a wardrobe piece was pulled away, exposing Jackson on live television for a fraction of a second. That brief instant became one of the most replayed and dissected moments in broadcast history. The reaction was immediate and chaotic, with broadcasters cutting away, executives scrambling, and media outlets replaying the footage endlessly. What might have been treated as a stage accident in another context, instead, escalated into a cultural flashpoint, shaping public discourse in real time. Within hours, the phrase, wardrobe malfunction, entered mainstream language, reframing the incident in sanitized terms, while the damage to Jackson's reputation was already spreading globally across news cycles, commentary, and institutional responses that would follow her for years. A childhood built for performance, not choice. The foundation of Janet Jackson's life was not built on ordinary childhood experiences, but on discipline, structure, and relentless expectation within the Jackson family system. Raised in Gary, Indiana, she grew up as the youngest member of a household already transformed into a performance machine by the success of the Jackson 5. Her father, Joseph Jackson, enforced strict rehearsal schedules, prioritizing precision and discipline over emotional development or personal freedom. Mistakes were treated as failures of character rather than learning moments, and perfection was demanded at all times. While her older siblings rehearsed and toured, Janet observed a world where performance was survival and obedience was essential. The household atmosphere blurred the line between family life and professional production, leaving little space for individuality. Even as a young child, she was exposed to the pressures of fame indirectly, watching her brothers become international stars while she remained in training for a future already decided for her. Emotional expression was limited, and approval was rare. This environment shaped her understanding of authority, identity, and self-worth, embedding a deep awareness that success required submission to external control rather than personal exploration or freedom of choice. Early television roles and manufactured identity. As she entered adolescence, Janet Jackson was placed into professional acting roles that reflected both opportunity and control. Her career on television began with appearances on shows like Good Times, where she portrayed emotionally intense characters such as abused or vulnerable children. These roles required her to access feelings of fear and sadness on command, a task that mirrored the emotional discipline already expected in her home life. However, these opportunities were not driven by her own ambition, but by decisions made on her behalf by her family, particularly her father. She had little say in the direction of her career, and financial control remained outside her reach. Subsequent roles on series such as Diff'rent Strokes reinforced her image as a polite, composed, and compliant presence on screen. While audiences saw a promising young actress, her personal experience was one of constant direction rather than self-expression. She moved seamlessly from one project to another without pause, leaving no room for normal adolescence or exploration of identity outside performance. Acting, like everything else in her life at the time, functioned as an extension of a system that prioritized productivity and image over autonomy or personal development. Early music career and lack of creative control. Janet Jackson's initial entry into the music industry reflected the same lack of agency that defined her acting career. Her first two albums, released in the early 1980s, were shaped almost entirely by external producers and management decisions rather than her own artistic vision. At a young age, she was positioned as a marketable extension of the Jackson brand, expected to perform material created for her rather than develop her own voice. These projects, including her self-titled debut and its follow-up, failed to achieve significant commercial success or critical recognition. Rather than being interpreted as a reflection of her potential limitations, these outcomes were treated as packaging issues to be corrected through production adjustments and marketing strategies. Janet herself later acknowledged that she had little desire to be a recording artist at that stage, describing the experience as something imposed rather than chosen. During this period, she remained financially and professionally dependent, with decisions about her image, sound, and career trajectory made by others. Despite her growing visibility, she existed primarily as a product under development rather than an independent creative force, still searching for identity within a system that prioritized control over artistic authenticity. Marriage, escape, and the collapse of early independence. At 18, Janet Jackson entered a secret marriage with James DeBarge, a relationship that symbolized both rebellion and desperation. It was her first significant attempt to break away from the strict control of her family environment, particularly the authority of her father. The marriage, however, was unstable from the beginning, marked by emotional volatility and external pressures. Within months, it was annulled under family intervention, effectively returning her to the structure she had attempted to escape. The experience reinforced a cycle in which attempts at independence were quickly contained or reversed by stronger forces within her life. Rumors later emerged regarding a possible hidden child, though these claims have never been substantiated and remain part of the broader mythology surrounding her personal life. Regardless of their truth, they highlight the extent to which her private experiences were constantly subject to public speculation. This period also reinforced a deeper emotional pattern. Independence was fragile, and autonomy could be easily overridden by family authority or public narrative. Despite the setback, the experience planted early seeds of resistance that would later become central to her transformation as an artist seeking control over her identity and career. Breaking away and the creation of control. The turning point in Janet Jackson's life came when she made the decisive choice to separate her career from her father's management. This decision represented not only a professional shift but a psychological and emotional break from a lifetime of conditioning. In collaboration with producers Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, she entered a creative environment where her voice was prioritized for the first time. Instead of being directed, she was asked questions about her experiences, desires, and identity. These conversations became the foundation for the album Control, a project that marked her emergence as an independent artist. The songs reflected themes of self-determination, personal boundaries, and emotional liberation. For Jackson, the process of creating the album was both empowering and frightening, as it required her to confront the possibility of failure without the safety net of family control. When released, the album exceeded expectations commercially and culturally, establishing her as a major force in popular music. More importantly, it redefined her public identity from dependent performer to autonomous creator. Control was not just an album title, it represented a lived transformation from obedience to authorship, rhythm nation, and cultural responsibility. Following the success of Control, Janet Jackson expanded her artistic ambition with the release of Rhythm Nation 1814, a project that moved beyond personal empowerment into social commentary. The album addressed systemic issues such as poverty, racism, education inequality, and violence, positioning Jackson as a socially conscious artist willing to use mainstream pop as a platform for critique. Its accompanying visual aesthetic, characterized by military-inspired choreography and monochromatic styling, reinforced themes of discipline and collective action. The project achieved both critical acclaim and commercial success, producing multiple hit singles and reshaping expectations for what a pop album could represent. Jackson's work during this period challenged the assumption that mainstream female artists, particularly Black women, should avoid overt political messaging to maintain broad appeal. Instead, she demonstrated that mass popularity and social commentary could coexist. The Rhythm Nation era solidified her status as an influential cultural figure whose work extended beyond entertainment into broader discussions about responsibility, representation, and social awareness, elevating her from pop star to cultural architect. Global stardom and the weight of comparison. As Janet Jackson's influence expanded throughout the late 1980s and early 1990s, she found herself increasingly compared to her brother, Michael Jackson, whose global fame dominated the music industry. These comparisons often overshadowed her individual achievements, framing her success in relation to his, rather than recognizing her independent impact. Despite her record-breaking albums, awards, and global tours, media narratives frequently positioned her within a competitive family dynamic she did not choose. This constant comparison created tension between public perception and personal identity, as her artistic evolution was filtered through the lens of sibling rivalry. While both artists supported each other privately, the industry and media amplified differences in scale, style, and commercial success. Janet's contributions to dance, fashion, and performance innovation were often contextualized as parallel or secondary to her brother's legacy, even when her work set new standards in its own right. This dynamic highlighted broader patterns in entertainment culture, where even extraordinary female success was frequently measured against male counterparts, limiting the recognition of independent achievement. Janet, velvet rope, and emotional exposure. In the mid-1990s, Janet Jackson shifted her artistic focus once again with the release of the album Janet, embracing themes of sexuality, intimacy, and personal expression. This period also coincided with a deeply private marriage to Renee Elizondo Jr., which remained hidden from the public for years. The secrecy of the relationship reflected her desire to protect emotional space from public intrusion, but it also contributed to isolation. Later, the Velvet Rope album revealed a more vulnerable side of her identity, exploring depression, loneliness, and emotional struggle. Unlike her earlier works focused on control and empowerment, this project exposed internal conflict and psychological complexity. The contrast between public success and private emotional difficulty became more visible during this era, as she openly addressed feelings of emptiness despite professional achievement. The eventual dissolution of her marriage added further emotional strain, culminating in a difficult and highly public divorce process. This period marked a shift in her narrative from one of control and dominance to one of introspection, vulnerability, and emotional reckoning. Collapse of private stability and public scrutiny. Following her divorce, Janet Jackson experienced a period of emotional and professional transition. The breakdown of her long-term relationship removed a significant source of private stability, leaving her to navigate fame and personal identity without a deeply trusted partner. Public scrutiny intensified during this time, with media outlets focusing on her relationships, emotional state, and perceived vulnerabilities. Despite continued commercial success, including tours and album releases, there was a noticeable shift in how she was portrayed culturally. The narrative increasingly emphasized personal struggle alongside artistic achievement. This period also highlighted a recurring pattern in her life, the intersection of private pain and public visibility. While she continued to perform at a high level, the emotional toll of sustained exposure and relational instability became more apparent in her work and interviews. The contrast between her professional strength and personal challenges underscored the complexity of maintaining control in both artistic and emotional domains simultaneously. The Super Bowl performance and media escalation. The Super Bowl halftime performance that featured Janet Jackson alongside Justin Timberlake became the most consequential moment of her career. What was intended as a controlled, rehearsed stage interaction turned into an unintended exposure that occurred in less than a second. Despite its brevity, the moment was magnified instantly by global broadcasting and replay technology. Media organizations responded with unprecedented speed, replaying and analyzing the incident repeatedly. The framing of the event quickly shifted from performance accident to cultural controversy, driven by sensational coverage and institutional reaction. Timberlake's immediate public response referred to the incident as a, quote, wardrobe malfunction, a term that became widely adopted in media coverage. Jackson, meanwhile, faced disproportionate scrutiny and professional consequences, including backlash from broadcasters, advertisers, and industry institutions. The disparity in public treatment between the two performers became a central part of the discourse that followed, raising broader questions about accountability, gender dynamics, and media responsibility in shaping narratives around high-profile events. Aftermath, silence, and cultural reckoning. In the aftermath of the Super Bowl incident, Janet Jackson faced a rapid decline in media support and public visibility. Invitations, appearances, and broadcast opportunities were reduced or withdrawn, creating a noticeable shift in her career trajectory. While she continued to release music and perform, the scale of institutional backing she previously enjoyed was diminished. The incident became a defining reference point in her public identity, often overshadowing decades of artistic achievement. Over time, discussions about the event evolved into broader cultural critiques regarding race, gender, and media accountability, particularly in how consequences were distributed unevenly between the performers involved. Jackson's experience became a case study in how quickly public perception can shift and how fragile artistic legacy can be in the face of mass media amplification. Despite this, she continued working, performing, and releasing new material, maintaining a presence in the industry she had helped redefine. The long-term legacy of the moment remains complex, reflecting both the volatility of fame and the enduring impact of systemic narratives in entertainment culture.